What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and welcome to today's player grades, post, aftermath, whatever you want to call it video. I wasn't going to do it last night after the game. We were had a couple brewskis. Didn't want to go full-on EDP. Plus, I had some plans. I wasn't going to ditch them just to come home and rush. And it was a win. If it was a win, I probably would have. But, the fact that performance didn't warrant me changing or altering anything of my evening, we're going to do it now. And now it's a little bit more calculated. It's a little bit more thought out. I have kind of a notes, a checklist, if you will, of things I want to talk about the Eagles more importantly, but we will have to touch upon the Saints game. And that leads off with number one, is that if I did do a player grade or player preview or whatever you want to call it video last week, I was super busy and they don't do a whole lot in terms of views, so I wasn't going to over stress myself to get that video up. I would have said that the Saints were going to crush the Eagles. I didn't think it was going to be that bad. I thought Philly would probably lose by 2 touchdowns at least. But there we thought they were. Our secondary was banged up going into that game, and then by the end of it, I didn't even know who the hell was playing in the Philadelphia Eagles secondary. It was like, oh, big-time miss there on Michael Thomas by number 41. I had no idea who number 41 was. Devontae Bosby. Oh, that's who that was. Okay. Putting a bunch of dudes off the street, practice squad players, against the most high-powered, on-fire offense in the league is never going to yield good results. And I would say the only... And it's not even because it's not that drastically different, but I'd say the only reassuring fact is I don't think the Saints are what we saw on Sunday better than the Eagles. It was just, if we're a full-strength Eagles team and versus a full-strength Saints team, the Saints team would beat us because, for whatever reason, our good players this year aren't playing particularly well, but it wouldn't be that big, that gigantic of a disparity in talent, or at least what it appears to be. But hats off to the Saints, man. There was a couple. Most Saints fans, they're an easy team to support because everyone likes Drew Brees. Their fan base, for the most part, is not a bunch of douchebags. But there were a couple, and I just had to, remind them that, the last time the Saints were really good, the Jersey Shore was super popular, and, you have probably a top 5 quarterback all time, and you only won 1 Super Bowl. You're wasting away most of his good years because your team was garbage. That's a little reality check that most Saints fans need to view. But that being said, Philly fans, we got to take this one on the chin. What we feel right now is what Philly was doing to teams last year. Every team we beat last year, for the most part, 90% of the teams felt like this. They got smoked by the Eagles, and I wasn't really talking shit a lot of times, but, I was confident. I was confident on social media, and, this is just the inverse. It's our turn to take our whooping. And I will say that if Philadelphia can't find a way to win the NFC least, I know a lot of people are kind of thinking I'm a Bears fan because I called the Bears being good last year after Philly kind of spanked them a little bit. I was like, man, the Bears 1-2 pieces away from being a good team and a big turnaround team next season. They're kind of doing it, but, as much as I think, I'll probably de facto to the Bears, I wouldn't hate the Saints getting another one. I like most of the players on that team, so that's still a long ways away because the NFC least is still pretty wide open, and I'm not getting ready to start saying, well, the Eagles are done. So here's a team I'm pulling for, or a team I'd be the most happy with winning if Philly can't make the playoffs. We're still a couple weeks away from that. So looking at the game, Carson Wentz is playing very frustrated. Carson Wentz is playing like me when I'm, going up against Cheese Sim in Madden and when I'm doing the rebuilds and stuff. He's just going, fuck it, I'm throwing the ball up. Like that interception he had to Marshawn Lattimore where he just underthrew it to Nelson Aguilar. I don't even know if that was the main read. That pass literally looked like he went, screw it, I'm throwing it out there, whatever. Nothing else is working. Like, that is the epitome of how Carson Wentz has been playing. And, while it's very easy to, understand why he's playing that, a franchise quarterback does not turn the ball over like that, and especially in a game where it's getting out of hand. Like, you're not going to see Aaron Rodgers just continue to throw up 50-50 risky balls when his team is not doing anything and putting his defense in bad positions. That's an area that Carson Wentz definitely does need to play a little bit better. What was pretty funny is Matt Miller, who does the mock drafts on Bleacher Report, made a tweet during the game that said, what quarterback would you like for the next 10 years, Jared Goff or Carson Wentz? And Jared Goff won the poll. It was ridiculous. I'm going to take off all homework glasses aside. This is just me being someone that has some minuscule amount of opinion on the internet about football. If you think in any way, shape, or form Jared Goff is a better quarterback than Carson Wentz, you simply do not know anything about football. You must have started watching football 30 minutes into that Philadelphia Eagles game. Carson Wentz is better than Jared Goff in every way, shape, or form, except one thing, which, it kind of is what made Carson Wentz good. It's kind of what made a bunch of quarterbacks good, like, Brett Favre and all these other ones, is if you need a quarterback that just runs exactly what the coach tells him to run, and that is it and nothing more, Jared Goff. Jared Goff is a safer quarterback than Carson Wentz. And then there's some instances where that could be preferred. And I've made this tweet. This is how it works. McVay calls in a play for Goff. He says, go A or B. If B's not there, throw it away. He'll do that 10 times out of 10. Carson Wentz, Doug Peterson makes a play. Here, go A, B. If B's not there, throw it away. Carson Wentz will rather say, well, if B's not there, why throw it away if I can make this ridiculous play to C that could be a game changer, could be a wow touchdown, might be an interception. Yeah, but I'm going to always try to find a way and see if I can get to C first. Like, that's the difference between Carson Wentz and Jared Goff. There's some instances where what Goff brings to the table, not a whole lot, but some instances where you might want that. But 9 times out of 10, almost 10 times out of 10, Wentz is, in a statistic standpoint, from an athletic standpoint, the superior quarterback from Jared Goff. But that's neither here nor there. And I'm not coming out and saying I dislike Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff's a fine quarterback. I think the Rams are an exciting team to watch. Just don't get it twisted, man. Don't let recency bias control your mind. So moving on to Doug Peterson. His game scripts are awful. You know, I'm not going to act like I'm the be-all, end-all of football, but I do know that, you know, the Philadelphia Eagles have a game script. And I would say for at least, at minimum, the first 2 drives, they practice those drives throughout the week. Those are supposed to be the drives that are supposed to be efficient. Those are supposed to be the drives that give you a gauge of how the defense is going to play while you're still moving the ball. And ultimately, what we did last year was score some points. I cannot recall a time, really, that's the reason why we're the last in the league in points scored in the first quarter. Doug's game scripts are absolutely awful. And from that, we need to give a middle finger to Josh McDaniels for not taking that Colts job, because we lost Frank Reich. And Frank Reich was a big part of those game scripts. And more importantly, Frank Reich was a big part of Doug's play calling. Doug called the plays, but Frank Reich was not a yes man. Frank Reich was the friction, like a big girl's thighs rubbing together. He was the friction that when Doug called some stupid plays, Frank's like, nah, let's go to this one. And then Doug like, all right, let's do it. You know, kind of like Philly Special. When Nick Foles is like, can we go to that? And Doug goes, yeah. You know, he's easily swayed, but when he has no one there, right now we have Mike Rowe, who is our wide receiver coach who grew Nelson Aguilar a set of hands. He's a yes man to Doug Peterson. He's like, yep, yeah, let's go play, Doug. Let's go play, Doug. Versus that friction that we really need to have. Not only Doug to challenge himself to call the best plays and have another ear in a Doug that can give you another look, but we didn't have anyone come from the outside in. So we're running the same repetitive plays that everyone knows we're going to run. Like, it feels like, and you've heard some of the beat reporters in the Philadelphia media saying it feels like defenses know what we're going to run before we run it. And that's because we're running the exact same shit. We did not bring in someone else from the outside to mix things in and change things up. We're running the same thing, expecting it to work, because what we thought we did last year was a Super Bowl formula, and that is not the case. I bought Doug Peterson's book, Fearless, and I have not been able to fucking finish it throughout any point this season because it's called Fearless, and he's calling plays like he's scared. The same lackadaisical screen passes that never work. Punting it when he should go for it on 4th down. Going for it when he shouldn't on 4th down. Getting frustrated with his play calling and wasting a timeout on a stupid challenge that happens every couple weeks. Like, I would expect it to happen at some point during this Giants game. It's not good, man. Everything starts with Doug. He needs to do a much better job. Next one is something Doug can't really control, is the injuries. The injuries suck. You know, I think what we did last year is incredible. What Philadelphia was able to accomplish last year probably will never be seen again in the National Football League. And if it is, it's going to be quite some time where you have that much injuries. Probably the most impactful injuries out of the entire league, and you still find a way to win the Super Bowl. You look at this Eagles roster right now, not as bad as last year, but you probably put Philly right now, probably top 5 team in the league right now in terms of talented players missing games due to injury. And this is what happens more often than not. Last year was the outlier, not the normal. Teams cannot combat the amount of injuries that Philly has incurred last year and this year and have any form of success. So that is kind of what gets these coaches a little bit of leniency. Missing J.J., we have no run game. Our offensive line, Peters has been rotating in and out because he's been hurt. Jason Kelsey's been banged up the last couple of weeks. Lane Johnson's not playing at 100%. J.J. is gone. We had no wide receivers. That's why we had to panic and make a Golden Tate trade, which I know a lot of people are shitting on that trade. I still agree with it. You know, the division NFC East is still there for us to take, and if Golden Tate can have a couple big games, it's worth that 3rd-round pick we get up this year to get his playing time, and then 2 years from now, probably getting a 4th-round comp pick. So we basically, trade it back around to get Golden Tate, whatever production we get out of him this year. But, with that, and then our injuries to our secondary, it's inevitable. It's just you can't win with this many injuries. So the question now comes, is Philly injury prone? Are these a bunch of injury prone players that aren't going to get paid? Like Jordan Hicks is hurt again. He's week to week. Jordan Hicks needs to stay healthy. I think he's been one of our better players this year, but if he misses 2-3 games this year, I am not going to gamble on him getting a big contract with this team because he's just, availability is one of the biggest assets a football player. It's the biggest asset a football player can have for the most part, and a lot of people on this Eagles team don't gut it right now. So when you struggle to run the ball because of all the injuries and the offensive line's been dog shit, not a lot of things are going to open up, and it's going to come down to teams knowing what we're running, and it's going to make life a lot harder on Carson Wentz, and that is what we're seeing right now. Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz. Well, he's not going to get too much shit from me because there's just no way that any DC with those guys in that secondary would make plays. I mean, Rasul Douglas and Jalen Mills, at the end of the day, I said all along, they're probably both safeties playing corners. But at least Rasul Douglas has some ball-playing skills, some ball-hawking skills. That was the difference between him and Jalen Mills. And we're not even seeing that. He's getting torched because at the end of the day, I made it very clear that I was never the guy that says you have to play Rasul Douglas instead of Jalen Mills. I've always just been Jalen Mills needs to play safety because I knew the issue with Jalen Mills was his speed, and Rasul Douglas is maybe even a downgrade to the speed. You know what I'm saying? So in reality, we're playing with two safeties at corner. Those actually got hurt for the most part. And it was very frustrating. But what we kind of can hold Jim Schwartz accountable to was the lack of blitzing. You still played the same lackadaisical, let's try to get pressure with our front four and have everyone else just in coverage with a bunch of practice squad players against the Saints. You did not bring the blitz. You did not start blitzing linebackers. And it's just, it's a shade. It's very, very sad. Like somewhere Jim Johnson is crying because Jim Johnson has some of the most creative blitzes in NFL history. Jim Schwartz's inability to try and mix it up, I think that's going to be his downfall here, man. If he was as good of a DC as he was for the first 10 weeks last year, I mean, he'd be calling better games, man. He is slipping, and I don't know what he's trying to hold on to. I'm a Super Bowl winning DC. You give up 500 yards to Tom Brady, and your defense has been getting bailed out by talent. So this is kind of where it comes to for Jim Schwartz anyways. He's not a bad DC. But is the thing that made him viewed as a good DC, was it more so that just the talent was executing well, that anyone could have looked good with Fletcher Cox, with Brandon Graham, Jordan Hicks, Malcolm Jenkins, all these guys playing well? Or was it actually Jim Schwartz? And from that, the biggest question is, well, if you get rid of Jim Schwartz this offseason, who do you bring in? Well, it's hypotheticals right now, but it doesn't look like Todd Bowles is going to have a job come this offseason for the Jets. Todd Bowles will be number one pick for a DC to come in for a replacement. Todd Bowles was really good when he was here. He's really great with DBs, and DBs is where we drastically need to improve. And we got to coach our guys up. We got to get the most out of Sidney Jones. We got to get the most out of Rasul Douglas. We got to get the most out of Jalen Mills. These guys that are still young and can develop a little bit. Maybe have to change their positions around. Maybe just got to take a guy like Todd Bowles, who's a DB specialist, and go, why are these guys playing corner? They should be playing safety. So Todd Bowles is the guy right now at the top of my list if all goes as planned and as expected. If he's available, bye-bye Jim Schwartz. All right, next up is the organizational culture post-Super Bowl. I mean, I'm getting vibes of this the fucking, like, what is this? This is supposed to be a team that you have a winning culture now. Like, this is our window, and I'm not seeing anything different. That's what comes back to the players. Jason Kelsey reported to the media that no one is having a sense of accountability, and you're seeing it. This team looks like a team that everyone's waiting for that other guy to make a play. They're not willing to step up right now. And to me, honestly, it looks like the team's just like, all right, well, you know what? Carson Wentz and Zach Ertz will just, eventually it'll be my time. But right now, Carson Wentz and Zach Ertz, they're doing an all right job. And then, what's Alshon Jeffrey doing? Alshon, when he makes a play, he looks awesome, but he's not getting enough plays. So why is he not getting the ball more? That's a question that comes down to Doug Pearson, comes down to Mike Rowe. Why isn't Josh Adams getting the ball more? He's literally the only guy in that backfield. I like Corey Clement as much as the next guy, but he's the only guy in the backfield that's moving the ball. Why is he not getting the ball more? Oh, Deuce Staley, because he's the worst person to have any personnel control on this roster. That was one of the most ridiculous things I have ever heard as a Philadelphia Eagle fan when Deuce Staley and the fans were hoping for him to be our offensive coordinator this year. He is terrible. He might be an excellent running back coach. He might be excellent at getting the most out of his players. He might be awesome to have in practice. He is god-awful when it comes to rotation. That's his job. That is in his job description, is you control when running backs come in and when running backs come out. And that is one of the biggest issues with this offense, and it has been even last year during the Super Bowl. So things need to change, man. You got to keep it fresh. You got to stay on top of the ball, and this is a Philadelphia Eagle organization right now that just is resting on their laurels and trying to say, well, obviously the formula that we set last year can get us back to the Super Bowl. We're not the Patriots. We don't have the benefit of playing in the god-awful AFC. You need to reinvent yourself every single year to be competitive in the NFC, especially the NFC East. That's why there's a new divisional champion every single year. because you have to consistently reinvent yourself, and they're failing to do that. Last kind of big point is Howie and drafting. When you look at all these teams around the league, you look at the Saints. It's ever clear with the Saints. They got a bunch of young players that are making a lot of plays. Marcus Davenport didn't play, but he's been playing pretty well, even though I don't think he was worth the 2 first-round picks. You got Alvin Kamara. You got Traquan Smith. You got that Keith Kirkwood guy from Temple. I actually remember him running a super fast time at his pro day. Surprised. He didn't get drafted like the late 7th. So he ran like a 4.3, and he was like 6'4". Anyway, it's like a Robbie Anderson scenario. You got Marshawn Lattimore. You got Von Bell, Marcus Williams. You got all these young players, right, making big-time plays. And then when you look at the Eagles, who do we have? I'm sick and tired of Philadelphia going with the safe pick for the most part. Like, who's our big, young, exciting player? Derek Barnett's out with injury. He gets excluded. But who's on the offensive side of the ball? Who's our young, exciting player? Dallas Goedert, who does not get any snaps. The offensive staff is not comfortable giving Dallas Goedert a bigger workload right now. So then who else do we got? We got a bunch of bums on the offensive line. We have an aging offensive line. We have an aging defense. There's no young, electrifying players. Sidney Jones, I firmly believe he hasn't been playing at 100% this year, and he's been all right in the nickel. He hasn't been bad. He hasn't lived up to the expectation of the first-round billing he had 2 years ago. But I look at this Philadelphia Eagle team, and you look at any team across the league, the Colts, you look at the Texans, you look at literally the Rams. Not really the Rams, but still, I guess kind of the Rams. All these teams have young, electrifying players, and then when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, we got Carson Wentz. We have Alshon Jeffrey, who's probably nearing the end of his prime. He's getting out there. He's almost 30. You got Zach Ertz, who, he is what it is. Wide receiver else, you got nothing. You got defensively, young players still on the rookie deal that are playing very well. Jordan Hicks, kind of. Like this is a team that has drafted all right, but they have not drafted good enough to have that electrifying player. And that's just what I see when I'm missing out there. There's not one play. Like, here's a good example. I have a couple Philadelphia Eagle jerseys. I'm like, well, what's the jersey I want to get next? It's like, I have no idea, because there's no one that's truly exciting right now on this Eagles team, because I already have a Carson Wentz jersey. That's like the young guy. We don't have an Alvin Kamara. We don't have a Kareem Hunt. We don't have, whoever. It comes down to the drafting, man. Like, when you look at it, a good team has superstar players. Where are our Philly superstars? Like the homegrown superstars. You know what I'm saying? And they got to do better, man. They got to do better. And we're going to have a first-round pick, 2 second-round picks. Like, it happens last year because we didn't have a first-rounder. But we're going to have 3 money picks this year. We don't have that third because we get rid of Golden Tate. With those 3 money picks, I mean, sooner than later, probably within the next 2-3 weeks, I will have my first Eagles mock draft. We got to hit. We have to hit, out of those 3 picks, 2 of those guys better be able to contribute as rookies. I'm sick and tired of Philly using our first-round picks on guys like, oh, yeah, we'll just rotate them in. Other teams don't do that. Other teams draft guys that are impact playmakers right away. And it feels like the last time Philadelphia fucking did that was Carson Wentz. And even then, Carson Wentz's job was to sit behind Sam Bradford when we drafted him. So we might even have to go all the way back to, like, Fletcher Cox. And even then, Fletcher Cox got, like, kind of eased into things. Like, when was the last time Philly drafted a player that his job was to start? Like, we got this guy, he's our starter. Like, we got, look, last year, we traded out. Year before that, we got Derek Barnett, he was a rotational guy. Year before that, it was Carson Wentz, his job was to sit behind Sam Bradford. Then we go to 2015, you got, what was it, 2016? It was 2016 Wentz, yeah. 2016 was Wentz. 2015 was Nelson Aguilar, he was a bust. 2014 was Marcus Smith, bust. 2013, Philadelphia got Lane, so there you go. Lane Johnson. It has been almost 6 drafts, going on 7 drafts since Philadelphia drafted a guy in the first round that was expected to be a day 1 starter. And that's unacceptable. That is frankly unacceptable. Your first round pick, maybe even second round pick, are expected to contribute day 1, and Philly's not hitting that. So that comes down to Howie, man. That comes down to just same old repetitive culture that we're sitting at. So the conclusion is we're 4-6. We got the Giants this week. The NFC East is still open. Is Dallas the favorite? They might be viewed as a favorite, but don't get it twisted. Dallas is not any better than Philadelphia. They barely beat us. They beat us nonetheless. I'm not trying to say Philly right now is a better team than Dallas. But what I'm saying is if Dallas is viewed upon the favorites, knowing we still have a game in hand with Dallas, it shouldn't be like, oh my God, well, we're screwed. Dallas just got luckier in that game. You say right now Dallas played Philly 10 times, it'd be whatever. It'd be 50-50 because it'd be whatever team can fall ass backwards into a win on any given week. So NFC East is still open. My hopes are pretty much looking towards the draft. I'm DeAndre Baker. Come here, baby. Come here, baby. We need you, DeAndre. I'm going to be dead ass honest with you. I would draft 2 corners. I'd go corner first round, corner second round. I'd pull what the Packers did by getting Jair Alexander and Josh Jackson. Something similar like that. But, I mean, what do you guys feel about, how you guys feeling? Saints loss. I mean, most people know that's trash. But, yeah. New Huskies episode tonight, so make sure you tune into that. And until next time, C4 saying peace out.